I would assume then no sooner than 11 or 11:30.
And I have put in a request, I don't know whether they're going to consider it timely, to be able to videotape the hearing tomorrow.
Well, that was a good idea, Ed.
But what I'd like to do today is to explain very calmly in the next half hour the rules, and I'm going to get into the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics, and I've got some editorial comment on that.
We talked about this before the show, and we want this to be a serious show. This is a serious subject matter, and I'm going to let you go with it. This is kind of practice for tomorrow, one might say. And the only thing I'm going to interject at some point is a quote from Senator Charles Grassley, Republican from Iowa, who's the leader of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he's been fighting for cameras in the courtrooms in federal courts since 1999. He is a co-sponsor of a bill right now before Congress, and our own Senator Blumenthal is a co-sponsor of that bill as well. So at some point when you go through what you're going through, I'll interject what Senator Grassley says about it, because he has some very articulate and compelling language about cameras in the courtroom, the greatness of our judicial system, and how more of our citizens and more of the world should have access to it.
Good. So with that, let me begin.
Go ahead.
You can go out to the internet, to the Connecticut Judicial website, and there are links that will take you to this document. Rules regarding electronic coverage of criminal court proceedings by the media. In June of 2011, the judges of the Superior Court approved significant changes to the rules regarding the electronic coverage of criminal court proceedings and trials by the media. The changes take effect on January 1st, 2012. Well, they took effect. It is important that the media review and understand these rules. And this web page is designed to provide the media with the information they need. Well, I think that the judges and the prosecutors and defense attorneys have to understand these rules also. Approval as media. Pursuant to Practice Book 1-10, media is defined in this section as any person or entity that is regularly engaged in the gathering and dissemination of news that is approved by the Office of the Chief Court Administrator. The Office of the Chief Court Administrator maintains the flexibility to approve or disapprove a media organization, subject to the answers to the following questions. Now, I had never heard the word bifurcate, and I had to ask you what it meant. And you said that it meant that the approval can be based on more than one criteria. So, here are the questions. Can the applicant demonstrate that he/she, that implies a person, by the way, regularly disseminates news by providing copies of articles, broadcasts, or other materials? 2, if the applicant does not comply with the established rules and protocol concerning electronic coverage, is there any organizational chain of command through which to pursue a complaint with regard to the failure to comply? Well, an individual, as implied, okay, a person, may not have a boss. A corporate entity is not required to have more than one owner or 2 participants in a sub-S corporation. So, I maintain that the chief court administrator or any judge can prohibit further access to the courts if rules are not complied with. In other words, give American news the opportunity to demonstrate what they do while they're in court. Do they follow the rules? Number 3, does the applicant have the ability to serve as a pool? Now, there's 2 types of pooling. One is the single camera goes in, records on a digital memory card, comes out of the courtroom, and provides access to the captured video to anybody who's a member of the pool. I have the ability to do that. The second thing is a live coverage of a court proceeding where you're in the courtroom with a camera and a wire comes out of the camera and goes out into the hallway, and there is a device that people can plug into and capture live and transmit with their live trucks the signal. American News has that capability in our Blackmagic mobile portable studio. And this is what I'm really concerned with. Does the applicant adhere to the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics or another code of professional ethics? Well, I was for many years a member of the Society of Professional Journalists. And I was also a member for several years and am a current member of the National Press Photographers Association, both of which have code of ethics. And I do subscribe and believe in the code of ethics of both the Society of Professional Journalists and the National Press Photographers Association, with certain caveats of, one, I'm not going to back down, and there are some things that I particularly don't agree with in their code of ethics. But I will say this. I believe that personally, I have a higher standard code of ethics inside of me than is written by the Society of Professional Journalists or the National Press Photographers Association. If you are...
You know, just to interject, that story that's been in the news lately, Steve Collins, related to, what is it, the New Britain Herald or the Bristol Press?
Right.
Which is it? One.
Bristol Press.
Okay. So I presume a month or so ago, or even now, the state would have no problem recognizing the Bristol Press as
qualified media.
Qualified media.
Approved media.
And I'm wondering if a lot of other journalists would say
they shouldn't be approved because they violated
right.
the code of ethics of the Society of Professional Journalists.
But because they're mainstream and everybody's heard of them and they have advertisers.
And he's the owner and there is no one in the chain above him.
In other words, if you are, how about Brian Williams?
Right.
You know, what station was he on again?
NBC, I believe.
What about Brian Williams doing that on NBC? I'm sure nobody would argue now that you know, when they don't want you, they hold you to a certain standard, but when they want you, they don't care about the standard anymore. That's just my point. That's the point I was trying to make.
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Now.
So the rules only apply when we're trying to keep you out. If you're one of the insiders, if you're one of the establishment, and you don't follow the rules, then it's completely okay. We still recognize you as the media.
Let's see if we can make the average person understand that even more, be more distinct.
Well, I consider myself the average person, so go right ahead.
Right. You have a marker light out on the back of your car. You have a tail light or headlight out on your car. And the policeman watches you drive by 50 times and never gives you a ticket. But if the policeman wants to legally stop you, he then stops you for the bulb being out and claims to have reasonable grounds to stop the vehicle. Judicial will become aware of and know about, same thing, violations of code of ethics.
For example, is the Office of the Chief Court Administrator doing a review right now after it came to light about what happened
of the Bristol Press?
Of the Bristol Press. Are they
and
doing
say,
a
we're
review?
going to revoke.
We're going to revoke
your media status.
Exactly. Are they doing that?
I doubt it very seriously.
I doubt it. I have a feeling if they came, like the Waterbury Republican, and wanted to take pictures in the courtroom, they wouldn't have any problem.
That would be like Saudi Arabia chopping off the head of a Shia cleric. It would ignite a firestorm within the state where the mainstream media would band together as a group and challenge the authority of the Chief Court Administrator to revoke the status of a published daily newspaper.
Right.
But they don't care and don't want to get involved in something involving American news because that's not us and we don't want to bite the hand that feeds us. Now, let's get to the Code of Ethics of the Society of Professional Journalists, and I've provided you a copy. Now, I've gone down to the bottom of the, and you can find these on the internet. I've gone down to the bottom of the Code of Ethics and taken a section and put it up to the top because I think it's pretty important for me to start out with what they wrap up with. So, be accountable and transparent. Ethical journalism means taking responsibility for one's work and explaining one's decisions to the public. That's what we're going to do right here. We are going to take responsibility for what we do, and we are going to explain our decision to go into that hearing tomorrow. Journalists should explain ethical choices and processes to audiences, encourage civil dialogue with the public about journalistic practices, coverage, and news content. Emphasis on news content. What is the public getting in their news content today from what I call the mainstream brick and mortar, established, corporate-owned news media entities? Respond quickly to questions about accuracy, clarity, and fairness. I know there's a document up in the Litchfield Courthouse that is not accurate, clear, or fair. Acknowledge mistakes and correct them promptly and prominently. Don't do something on the front page that's an error and bury it on page 20. That's the way I understand that. But maybe I'm reading it different than they do. Explain corrections and clarifications carefully and clearly. And I'm going to try and be as clear as I can.
And again, these are the rules for the Society of Professional Journalists.
This is the last section of the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics that I've brought from the bottom up to the top. Expose unethical conduct in journalism, including within their organizations. Abide by the same high standards they expect of others. Now, this is the SPJ Code of Ethics, revised September 6, 2014 at 4:49 p.m. CT at SBJ's National Convention in Nashville, Tennessee.
And I would just like to say, when I was in San Diego, it's got to be a couple years ago, the Society of Professional Journalists were having a meeting out in San Diego. And we went to that meeting, and your stringer, videographer J.C. Playford,
Was a panelist.
who has American News credentials, was invited to be a panelist.
Correct.
And they were talking about media credentials, the situation with the San Diego Police Department out there where they issue media credentials, the whole issue of, is it right when the government controls who the media is? And of course, our answer is no. But my point is that your stringer, J.C. Playford, was invited by the Society of Professional Journalists to be on a panel out there to talk about media issues.
Because in San Diego County, they issue media credentials. The government issues credentials.
Which you have.
Which I have, from Southern California. In the state of Connecticut, I know of no government agency that issues media credentials. It doesn't happen. They used to be issued by the Connecticut State Police. The Connecticut State Police got out of the business because there was a legal challenge to their authority to say who is and who is not the media. Now, preamble. Members of the Society of Professional Journalists believe that public enlightenment is the forerunner of justice and the foundation of democracy. Ethical journalism strives to ensure the free exchange of information that is accurate, fair, and thorough. An ethical journalist acts with integrity. The Society declares these 4 principles as the foundation of ethical journalism and encourages their use in its practice by all in the media. And it says it encourages. It doesn't say demands. Seek the truth and report it. Ethical journalism should be accurate and fair. Journalists should be honest and courageous in gathering, reporting, and interpreting information. Now, courageous in gathering, and I'm not going to get involved in reporting and interpreting information. Courageous. You're standing on Park Street in Hartford. You are standing outside of the yellow tape in an area where you can videotape what's going on inside of the yellow tape, and law enforcement comes up and says, you, with the camera in essence, you, go around the corner so that the building stands between you and what's going on inside the yellow tape. Move. Move again. Move. Move. Well, somebody has to be courageous enough to stand there and say, I'm on the outside of the tape. I'm standing amongst a bunch of civilians who have been permitted to view this. Just because I have a camera, I'm not moving. And subject yourself to possible arrest.
And somebody has to be courageous enough to when you, and I mean you, Ed Peruta, and American News, make a request to record in the courtroom, and you are told that you have represented in the past to be a member of the American Press Association, which is entirely untrue, and you have to be told that you're not the media, even though you've been doing it since 1989, and you have things said about you that are negative and hurtful personally to your reputation, but you have to go in there tomorrow and you have to listen to it and you have to fight back.
Well, and I would imagine that they're going to have video clips, transcripts, whatever they have. I don't care. I seriously considered going in myself and literally pointing my fingers at the prosecutor and the judge over what happened and how it happened back when they had the hearing on December 23rd, what led up to it and what happened. But better minds and better opinions are prevailing right now, and I think if I get an opportunity, I'm going to have a lawyer do it for me. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to come back here, whichever way it goes, and be Ed Peruta and give my opinions on what's going on in our courts. Now, journalists should take responsibility for the accuracy of their work, verify information before releasing it, use original sources whenever possible. Now, verify information before releasing it. The Litchfield Senior Assistant State's Attorney, Dawn Gallo, could not have verified her information before releasing it. She could not. She may have called the American Press Association and found out that I'm not a member, but you know something? She could have called me and I would have corrected it and said, I don't know who they are. I've never applied. I've never been a member, and never said I was.
It's funny you put it that way, because it's almost like by making a request, you have become the opposition of the state. Why are you the opposition of the state? Why is not the state working with you or asking you questions or getting more information? It's almost like you're the defendant in a case that the state's just going after. You're some sort of, one would hope she's going after the real defendant in the case, if he in fact is guilty, one would hope that, but the attention seems to be on you as some sort of the enemy, and I don't understand that.
The defense...
And it's been that way since the beginning.
The defense...
Why is the media the enemy?
The defense, in essence, listened to the objections of the state and simply said, yes, by this gentleman. In other words, if anybody else had walked in the door, it isn't a matter of the content of what's going to happen in the courtroom. It's the cameraman.
Right.
It's who's doing it. And I have to say, they have absolutely no history of me doing a trial gavel to gavel to rely upon as to how I will or won't do it.
But what they do know is if it's NBC, ABC, CBS...
Or the Bristol Press.
Or the Bristol Press, they control the media.
That's right.
And so they can control the message. With you, they know they can't control you.
There's nothing they can threaten me with.
And that worries them.
Right.
You don't have advertisers that are going to leave and take their money with them. You're not worried about the state cutting off their communications with you and not feeding you information, because you get your own information. You're not fed information.
That's correct.
And the funny part about it is, and I told you this, and we won't go into any more detail, but what people don't know is that when you go into a situation like this and you seemingly, by all accounts, and this is why people don't do it, make enemies with people who are in positions in the government. For every enemy you make a friend.
Yes.
And that's how you get your information.
And you sometimes earn respect. I don't care if they like me or dislike me, but they're going to respect me, because this is not the last time I'm going to make a request. I'm going to make more. And I'm sure that if they keep doing this, a pattern's going to emerge. That it's not what's happening in the courtroom that they don't want videotaped. It's who's doing it. All right.
Okay.
Remember that neither speed nor format excuses inaccuracy. Now, again, the senior assistant state's attorney, Dawn Gallo, should read these, provide context, take special care not to misrepresent or oversimplify in promoting, previewing, or summarizing a story. Gather, update, and correct information throughout the life of the news story. Senior Assistant State's Attorney Dawn Gallo's brief that she filed, she talks about things that were allegedly said in 2012. Well, it was 2015 when she wrote it. How come she didn't update and correct information? Be cautious when making promises, but keep promises they make. Identify sources clearly on information and belief. Well, where'd you get the information? The public is entitled to as much information as possible to judge the reliability and motivations of sources. Consider sources. Motives for promising anonymity. Reserve anonymity for sources who may face danger, retribution, or other harm, and have information that cannot be obtained elsewhere. Explain why anonymity was granted. Now, I don't think anybody granted anonymity to the incarcerated individuals who are going to testify that somebody said something to them in the jail.
I believe if we were to look at the court file, there's a list of witnesses filed by the state. It's over 100 witnesses. They must be in there.
Right. Diligently
Maybe
seek
not.
subjects of news coverage.
It seems like if they were granted anonymity, it would have been put in the state's brief.
Right, they put them
that
behind,
would have been important.
They put them behind a shadow screen.
Well, no, but I mean in the brief that the state filed objecting to your request, that would have been number one, I would think.
Right.
Okay.
Diligently seek subject of news coverage to allow them to respond to criticism or allegations of wrongdoing. Why didn't Senior Assistant State's Attorney Dawn Gallo seek me out to allow me to respond to the criticism or allegations of wrongdoing?
Again, I don't know.
And will they object to my addressing it tomorrow?
I don't understand why you're the enemy in this case.
Right. Avoid undercover or other surreptitious methods of gathering information unless traditional open methods will not yield information vital to the public. Be vigilant and courageous about holding those with power accountable. Now,
I like
be
that one.
vigilant and courageous about holding those with power accountable. Give voice to the voiceless. Now,
I like those.
right. Support the open and civil exchange of views, even views they find repugnant. Recognize a special obligation to serve as watchdogs over public affairs and government. Seek to ensure that the public's business is conducted in the open and that the public records are open to all. Provide access to source material when it is relevant and appropriate. Boldly tell the story of the diversity and magnitude of the human experience. Seek sources whose voices we seldom hear. Avoid stereotyping. Journalists should examine the ways their values and experiences.
That's it. We got to go.
We got to go.
End of another great show, Ed. I know
tomorrow
you
morning.
are getting ready for tomorrow.
We'll
so am
continue
I.
it tomorrow morning, and